I'll be reading from Psalm 18, like Mr. Gary already read part of it. I didn't have him read the whole thing because it's very long, but he read the first 15 verses. The background of the psalm is David wrote it. This psalm is also in 2 Samuel chapter 22, which I think is pretty cool because, hold on. It's important because he wrote it twice, which means that it must have been an important thing for David. And it's about God delivering him from the hands of his enemies. And it is written near the end of David's life. And it's him looking back over decades of him being betrayed or in battle. And this isn't a psalm of a man in the middle of a crisis. It's the one that he wrote after, looking back in gratitude. In the start, David opens with a bunch of visuals and metaphors. He compares God to a rock, a fortress, a deliverer, a shield, a horn of salvation, a stronghold. Why so many, you ask? Because no single metaphor can capture how God protects us and loves us. A rock protects differently than a shield. A fortress can hold you up. And they all just do different things because God can do so much for us. And David is saying, whatever kind of danger you face, God meets it, and it's in its own specific way. And something you might just want to think about is how is God, what metaphor is God using to protect you right now? In the next part, David's kind of in a crisis. It describes him being surrounded by the cords of death, the torrents of destruction. This is vivid, near drowning language. Then it says, "Then in my distress I called upon the Lord. He heard my voice." This is very powerful because it shows though David was going through a ton, he went to God first and God answered him. And the next part, it shows God's response, which is quite dramatic. This is like the heart of the psalm. It's the main chunk. An earthquake, smoke, fire, darkness, thunder, lightning, God riding on a cherub. It's some very intense imagery, which shows God's dramatic response and his power and love for David. It's important to remember that these earthquakes probably weren't happening and there probably wasn't fire and smoke coming from God's nostrils, but it's kind of just poetic language to describe, because you can't describe David couldn't describe how awesome it was for him to be, for God to rescue him. And verse 19 says, "He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me." The next part is David reflects on his own integrity. "The Lord dealt with me according to my righteousness." This can feel uncomfortable to some readers because David's life definitely wasn't sinless, but he put God first. And when he reflected on it, he realized that he had a strong faith. Verse 30 says, this God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. And then towards the end of this psalm, it ends with David just kind of has peace with God, and God trains his hands to preach his word and for battle. It says, feet like the deers set me to secure on the heights. and secures victory. It closes in worship. Great salvation he brings to his king forevermore. And so David went through a ton, as it describes in this psalm. He finds peace with God through his faith. Some questions you might want to think about is, where has God been like a fortress or rock through you? Why does David use overwhelming, almost violent imagery to describe rescue? I think it's just to show how powerful and awesome God really can be. How does verse 30, in his way is perfect, sit with you in circumstances that don't feel perfect in the moment? To me, it just shows how God knows what's going to happen, though you might not like the outcome. He has the plans for you. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11 says, For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And with God, you can power through and push through.